record on the computer. All right, welcome to the Object Storage Working Group Sync. This is the Americas meeting. I'm taking over for Alessio for the next 2 months here. Yeah, I added a couple points to the agenda that I thought might be worth talking about. If you have anything else, just let me know towards the end. We can just add them on at the end. Let's first go through the action items from last week, or I guess that was the previous meeting actually. So not all of you might have been part of that. There were two things in progress. One was the object storage bucket categorization issue. It had the issue had a different name previously, and this might be a bit confusing because I broke this up into two so that we have one that really only has the focus on the actual categorization of the object storage buckets, and I broke out a separate one for more holistically describing the current implementation of object storage and uploads maybe in general, because we found that maybe that is not well understood enough, both inside and outside of the group. This first came up when we started to talk about requirements and like how would we score them. There was the need to better understand the complexities behind this, which then kind of prompted us to maybe have a harder look at what is it we actually have right now, like which pieces are responsible for what, and just like document this. And this will also be beneficial for any like newcomers who might join after this working group concludes and might start working on this. It will just make it so much easier to just dive into this and contribute. So that said, this issue that we had already closed, we actually found that Marine pointed out today, it's kind of like a moving target, right? Because having one bucket per feature or per type of upload is just, that's the status quo, that's what it is now. And of course, like every so often we will add to this. So there has actually been a new, I haven't looked at this in detail yet, but Marine just pointed me to this on Slack today, that we're actually looking to add new buckets. So we might actually have to go back, and we should probably look at this as well and see how that will fit into this configuration matrix. Or, you know, honestly, maybe we can just reach out to whoever's working on this and ask them to have a quick look and see if they can leave a quick comment on this existing issue here for how this could be slotted in, because this is kind of how we went about this. We didn't ourselves look at each individual feature to see how exactly it's done. For most of them, we actually had help from other teams, so that was very useful.
So, Matthias, a question for you and everyone else actually here. Does this live anywhere else outside of this issue, like this table?
This one does not yet, no.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing because it's super useful information, I think, for everyone. So this should definitively go somewhere in the documentation.
You know what?
That's a great point.
What we could also do, Matthias, here is if we place this type of table in a document, in the document somewhere, what we can do is go to charts and omnibus and add in one of the headers, right? Like how do I add a new bucket or so on, right? Like in the configuration itself, link it there and say basically, when you are adding something to this list, go and update the documentation as well. And that way you don't have to deal with that. And that allows us to at least not think about new items coming in.
Right, let it grow naturally, kind of.
Exactly. And
that's a really good idea.
Focus on something else, right? Like focus on actually resolving the problem later, but at least we're not going to keep running behind all the time.
I think that's a fantastic idea, yeah.
I caught this issue purely by chance because I was working late last night.
Right, so transfer table, this would just be a markdown, right? We would have to find a good place for that, where that would live, probably in the developer docs for object storage or uploads.
This should literally be not more than 5 minutes of work, just copy, paste, and add.
Yeah, exactly. And then we would prompt developers to update this whenever you said in Omnibus and charts.
Yeah, that's where they need to expose new configuration options.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And probably get at some point as well, but I think the easiest thing is to focus on Omnibus and charts.
Okay, I'd have to figure out where exactly to do that, but I can take this one.
You know what's good? That issue has the infrastructure issue actually has a list. So you can just follow that list and go to the merge request Darby is adding to.
Yeah, that's a good point. Cool. All right. I find it easy to see when I put a highlight on it. All right, that's pretty much it. Maybe just super quickly. So this one, which confusingly has the title of the previous issue had originally. This we newly created because this here the idea was to really focus on the actual implementation, not so much the structure, if that makes sense, of like which features map to which buckets, but this is really about how do upload, not just object storage, how do uploads work, because it's quite complex and I'm still going through it. And I just started by, I just started with the developer docs, and because I think for me, it's actually super interesting because I have never implemented an upload at GitLab. So for me, I'm this newcomer, right? I'm kind of like the perfect persona for this. So I'm looking at the existing code and the existing docs, and I find it really hard to understand. So I think we should make an effort at documenting this better and providing very specific guidance for which combinations of all of these possible, like these different dimensions that we have to uploads. You know, what type of upload is it? You know, is it disk buffered? Is it a direct upload? Does it go to local storage or remote storage? It would be nice to have more comprehensive examples as well. And so I know Grzegorz had like opinions on this as well. He's not on this call, but I can ask him, this or next week as well, because I think he even wanted to make this a bit like wider even, but I don't know exactly what ideas he had in mind. So we'll have to see still. And of course, to everyone here in the meeting as well, or whoever's watching the recording, please leave any comments or suggestions, what you think could be improved, whether that's just improving the existing documentation or add new documentation. Please add your thoughts. And it would also be great if we could find a DRI for this. That would not mean you have to write all of this yourself, but if we had someone who would be willing to make sure that we make progress on this, that would be great. This could just be like, I don't know, prompting folks every now and then to go ahead and especially people that may have already worked with it, that might be maybe the fastest way to document the bits they know. And it could just be, we said it might be easier if we want to collaborate on this to just throw it in a Google Doc for now and then transfer it into proper Markdown later on. It's just faster that way. Does that make sense to everyone?
I have a question. It makes sense. I have a question if the group actually considered, while this is being investigated, which I think is a good thing, like absolutely we should write down like how some of these things work, because if it takes 5 people to figure this one out, that's not a good sign, right? But I'm wondering, is there a way for us to somehow stop or slow down the addition of new things in the undesirable implementations? So if we say that we want direct upload, right? These are the considerations you have for direct upload. This is how it works and so on. Maybe if we can create like a stack list and say, you know, these 3 options are valid. 4th one, if you want to do this, then you need to jump through additional hoops, meaning you need to talk with someone who has been working on this and so on. And we don't have to like create a large list where we are going to say like only do one. We can also say just remove this one last option, and that way we kind of reduce new items being added to the undesirable implementation. Like I'm wondering whether that's useful to think about right now. And this is not the only thing we're doing, obviously, but this is like one small item that we can consider to just reduce the amount of things that need to be done, because this is getting out of hand, how many things that need to be done.
Yep. I think it's a great idea. Personally, I still have the problem that I don't even know what is desirable or not. So I think I'm not there yet. I'm still at the point where I don't even understand how this works currently. So, so that's what I'm still trying to figure out and make sure that's written down somewhere. That does not mean, of course, we can work towards what you just said. I mean, there are certainly people inside and outside of the working group that understand it much better than I do, and who probably have an opinion on this. Yeah, I don't know. So I'll just give it back to the room if anyone is on the call who has already some insight there, or if we can also take it as an action item for next meeting to raise the question again. Because I think it's a pretty good idea that we just contain, kind of like putting guardrails around things that we don't want to proliferate further. Yeah, that's definitely a good idea.
You can also consider making this as a step 2. So you have in the outcome that you say that you want to have something written in the documentation, and you can add outcome number 2, make it a list.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
And it doesn't have to have like large discussions. Large discussions will come after you write all of these things up and have a common understanding of what is desirable or not. And then, it could just be how you create the document that is affected.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Anything anyone wants to add to this? Should we take an action item now already, or should we just kind of let this sink in a bit and wait for all of the AMER joiners to think on this as well first?
Up to you.
Okay, I mean, I can take an action item for just reminding people about, giving this some thought. It might be a bit too early to actually act on this, but I think it's a good idea.
Cool.
So yeah, I guess we can just say think about ways to guard existing implementation. Okay, I can flesh this out later. Should we move to the next item, or anything else you had around this one? Okay, all right. So these are a bit in like random order, but let's just look at them one by one. I was just going through the epic again this morning, and I was just wondering if anyone had any context on this issue, because there was no description, but it is open. So I wonder if anyone had any context there, so I could flesh this out a bit more. I was basically just looking, I don't know, what are kind of the smaller but really actionable things right now that we can pick up to make some progress.
So I know a bit of context around not the issue per se, but the intention of things behind it. This was to create a blueprint that would describe the current situation and set some terminology that people can rally around. So if you can already see this was created a year ago, yes, a bit more than a year ago.
Right.
And this was, Alessio's starting point to actually start raising visibility and start consolidating some of the knowledge he had, and then also start gathering support. So the blueprint itself is merged. So I think this issue could just be closed because it's there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. If this was primarily to get the blueprint in, which I found very helpful as well, launching into this all, then maybe we should just close it out as done. And anything that still needs to be added or changed or anything else we want to do in that direction, we can always create new issues for that, right?
Yeah, I'll just change this the labeling and close it. I think it's
okay. Cool. Thank you. Thanks. Excellent. So that's done. What else? Yeah. So this came up again when I was just playing around with the code a bit, and I remember Alessio had mentioned this as well, that one criticism of the current implementation was that we have one authorized endpoint per per resource that we allow direct uploads for, which, well, obviously it complicates the implementation because you have to edit n times over. And I guess, like, again, looking for smaller, self-contained, fairly simple things that I hope would move us in the right direction. That this is not a game changer if we were to do that, but I was wondering if it could make sense at this point to explore this idea a bit further. Yeah, to look into having a single authorization endpoint for uploads, so that workhorse would always go to the same endpoint before uploading to object storage. And I don't know, kind of see what falls out of that. It doesn't have to be at this point. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, production quality, but I kind of wrote this from a standpoint of I don't actually know how complex this would be. There are some complications because it would have to currently, because we have all of these different buckets instead of one, we would have kind of a single place in the Rails code base that would have to be aware of all these things that might come with drawbacks as well. But it seems to move in the right direction, because if we want to support a single bucket approach, ultimately, we will have to have something like this anyway. That's why I thought maybe that might be a good thing to pick up as well in parallel, especially if there's people in the working group who maybe you don't want to work on documentation or something, you know, and just get, you know, do something hands-on and actually code something. Yeah, that's why I created this. Do you think that makes sense? I wish David was on the call, because he, I think he had thoughts on this.
Yes, I was going to say, from a security perspective, I really like the idea, because we centralized the authorization on a single point rather than spreading the authorization across different components. So yeah, I really like that. But I remember having issues when I work on specific security issues with David on package uploads, where it was not so easy to kind of do that with a workhorse. So I think David is definitively probably the best person to ask questions about the interactions between different components, because I know we struggle to make it working properly. So yeah, it's too bad it's not on the call right now, but
yeah,
I really like the idea.
Okay, great. No, that's great feedback already. I mean, we can catch up async around this as well, and, you know, just do it on Slack, and see if anyone has capacity to look into this. And again, this doesn't have to be. I know, you know, everyone, this, you know, you're just doing this on the side here, but I feel like we need to make some progress with, like, the hands-on stuff as well. And yeah, David did some great work already with exploring active storage, for instance. And I think we should also be okay with the idea of writing something that we then toss out, right? We just should spend too much time on it, you know, just explore an idea and see what falls out of it. I think this can be super helpful to kind of like feel out the direction and yeah, what the complexities are that come with these things.
Agreed. We should have, like, we shouldn't be having tens of POCs to, you know, rewrite the application, but something as localized as this is a great idea, I think.
Yeah, I think it's fairly self-contained.
I'm not arguing about, like, whether, right, like, the implementation is going to be easy or not, but I think as a general idea of consolidation actually sounds like a good approach. All
right, cool. Excellent. Yeah, again, I if we don't find anyone now, please, you know, just think on it if you're potentially interested in working on this. Otherwise, I'll just leave it open for a while now and see if anyone has time to pick it up. All right. What else did I have? Oh yeah, I just I created this because this is very much me, like looking at what we have and just trying to wrap my head around it. And I found that so there's two things I think we can improve the status quo. One is to look at the actual. I kind of like what you touched on, Maureen, earlier. With the blueprint, we tried to introduce like a common language as well around these things, right? So we know we're talking about the same stuff. You know, if someone says direct upload, we kind of know what's meant by this. I do not find these reflected in the code base. I find this makes it very tricky to look at the current implementation and kind of map this back to all of these ideas that we have proposed, or the concepts that already exist and we refer to in the blueprint, but also in discussions. So I think it could be a of great help to newcomers to the code base and the whole upload stack that we currently have, to just go in and see, not changing any behavior, but seeing like, can we kind of rename this, or like, yeah, kind of reflect the language better that we use in the code base so that it's easier to understand and kind of map back to what we have. I think that would have helped me definitely, like trying to make sense of the current implementation more. I also found it's like largely undocumented, and I don't mean like in Markdown files, but close to the code that you actually work with. So that could be like a small task as well. Maybe more geared to someone already familiar with the stack. So I think maybe the pool of people to work on this one is a bit smaller than maybe the other issues we have. But I think that's always something that is useful to do, and it would help future us as well and other people joining this effort to just dig into this and contribute.
That's a great idea. I really like that. Yes. What you can consider then doing with this is actually make it something that is more like you're saying, like newcomers that are more familiar with Workhorse. I actually think this might be a good opportunity for folks who are practicing Golang, and we have many people in the company doing that, to get their first feel of development in a real controlled environment, so to speak, because we are not expecting them to change behavior. We're expecting them to understand code, change the naming to align with what we are talking about. I actually think that's a perfect opportunity for people to practice a bit. So I would go as far as saying that this is probably a first contributors type of thing that you can share in development channels across, right? Like to managers as well, because managers know which team members might be practicing Go a bit. It could be a good opportunity for folks to just participate.
Yeah, I think
regardless of whether they know.
Yeah.
Sorry, regardless of whether they know the whole object storage story or not, they don't necessarily need to know that part. So if that issue gets formulated in a way that is more like, you have this, make it into this, and document how this actually functions,
right,
that could be a great item for folks.
Yeah, great. I mean, I can definitely float this in, Slack channels as well, like Golang and Workhorse, to see. I actually see these posts like every now and then from people asking, hey, I would like to, start working on Workhorse, but I don't really know where to start. So yeah, I can definitely float this. I mean, we can say if we don't find anyone within the next week or so, I'm happy to work on this as well, because I'm also in a similar position. I have contributed to Workhorse a little bit, but it was a very focused effort on just one component of Workhorse, so I haven't really been around the whole thing. So if no one else picks this up, I can take it as well.
If you pick this up yourself, then you can only do so many of these things, right? Like you'll do one and you'll be like, okay, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
The second one you run into, you can then actually offload
pass it on
to someone else. Yeah, but you will have the experience of going through the thing yourself.
Okay, great. That's all I had in terms of agenda points. We have 2 minutes left. Any closing remarks or questions? All right, then you can have 2 minutes back up your time, and I would say we'll see each other next week or in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Matthias.
See you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.